Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, the podcast where we bring you inside the world of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, and powerful collaborations. Each episode, you'll dive into conversations with top entrepreneurs, visionaries, and business leaders, unlocking the secrets to building profitable relationships that drive growth and success. Whether you're looking to expand your network, find new referral partners, or scale your business, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, presented by Leduc Entertainment. Today we are joined by Jeshua Lauka, who is a legal and boardroom advisor, a dedicated partner at David Wierenga Lauka, and a community leader. Jeshua, welcome to the show.
Adrian, thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. Thank you for nailing the pronunciation of my name as well.
We try our best around here. So Jeshua, can we start out? Can you tell everyone and tell me a little about yourself and a little about the work that you do?
Sure. Personally, so I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Been married to my wife for almost 20 years. Have 4 kids, aged 18 down to 11. I'm an attorney, a partner at a boutique business law firm in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And most of my work, as you kind of mentioned, when I'm not working on the business, building culture, mentoring, really speaking into the vision of who we are, our mission, vision, values, is working as a fractional general counsel to purpose-driven companies, those types of businesses that have, one, they've got a lot of legal needs, but they don't have in-house representation, and their leader or leaders are really purpose-driven in how they lead their organization or organizations. So in a nutshell, that's kind of how I spend my time.
And can you tell me a little bit, when people come to David Wierenga Lauka, can you tell me a little bit about the people that you help?
Sure. So as a firm, we help businesses and families. So business, it's the common thread of everything that every lawyer and team member at our firm is working with. Most of my practice is working with entrepreneurs. There are people who, I would say, just because of probably my age demographic, I'm 43, I'll just throw that out there. They tend to be on the younger side. They have a higher level of risk comfort. And so what usually that means is they've got their hands in a lot of different ventures. So because of that, they are really looking to us to be a partner. So it's really relational, and that kind of goes into the nature of being boutique. The whole difference between being transactional and relational. Our clients are not transactions to us. They're relationships. We value them. And so that's kind of the experience for everyone that works with us. We're a team member to everything they have going on and need assistance for legally.
Well, and can you tell me a little bit about when people come to the firm, what are some of the pain points? What are some of the problems that they're having? What are some of the pain points that you're solving for them?
Wow, it could be all over the place. That really depends upon where they come to us at. If they're a new founder, a lot of it is they don't know what they don't know. And so it is the unknown and how that we can give them a vision of what it means to be proactive and protect against all the unknown risk. And right. So if it's a new founder, what risks should they be looking out for? And I could tell them, well, internally, you got to look at your internal risk. Are you organized properly in order to protect yourself? Do you have a team that you then also need to protect to make sure you have good written communication about exit strategy, expectations, and then external contracts? Are you making sure that your relationships with your clients, vendors, suppliers, all of that you've got proper contracts in place that allocate risk appropriately away from yourself to protect yourself? So that's the early stage. And then you can find people who come to us and they're coming reactively. They're coming because they've got a problem. It's keeping them up at night. And they finally said, oh, great, I really need to talk to a lawyer. Maybe they got served with a lawsuit. Their business is underperforming and they aren't able to meet some expectation. They're default under a contract, something like that. It could be a lot of different ways. But the biggest issue is simply we like to be able to solve clients' problems that keep them up at night and that's extremely rewarding.
Well, and you deal with business law, real estate, and estate planning. Is that correct? And it sounds like you wear kind of a lot of hats.
Yeah, it's interesting. As a firm, our firm will touch anything in those three categories simply because they're also interrelated for the business owner. A business, particularly a brick and mortar business, will inevitably have real estate, whether or not they are acquiring more real estate for their warehousing, or maybe they're a tenant, maybe they're a business structure that they only lease out and they don't actually own brick and mortar. They just want to lease. So we have to help out with those. And then it's the succession planning or estate planning is how do you transfer those assets you've built out over time to the next generation or whoever you want to leave those behind. So as a team, we allocate differently based upon our emphasis, but as a firm, we'll touch any of those areas, and it's business that's the common thread that binds it all together.
Now you describe your approach to law and legal issues as sort of a client-based, approachable, and solution-oriented style. Now, do you find that your approach to each of those areas, business law, real estate, estate planning, do you find that your approach is similar in all of those fields, or is it a little different, your approach, or how do you manage all of that?
Yeah, it's interesting because, well, number one, I would say the private practice of law. This is my 17th year, and it's never boring. There's always a lot of different and nuanced areas of the law within those three areas to tackle. But it's really about delegating to our team based upon their emphases. And so just because my client is experiencing a real estate issue and I am the relationship they trust doesn't mean I'm going to be the one that's handling if they've got, let's say, a lawsuit involved with their real estate or that nature. So it's really a team approach for our firm.
Now, you mentioned this is your 17th year, but I want to know, how did you get started? What inspired you to go into the law field? What inspired you to get into the legal business?
Wow. So I guess we're going to get a little personal here then.
How
do I answer that question? I guess candidly, I went into law school. I knew in high school that I wanted to go into law, and particularly it was because, well, two reasons. Number one, I loved learning. I knew that at an early age. I loved to read, but also justice was something near to my heart, particularly justice for people who were vulnerable. And that's my own lived experience growing up with parents that were high school dropouts, alcoholism, drug addiction, poverty, a lot of chaos in my upbringing and my siblings' upbringing. And so going through that and really going into high school with purpose, knowing what I wanted to do, I knew I wanted to continue to learn, and I wanted to study law and use it in some way to help people with their issues that they couldn't help themselves.
Well, I mean, that's incredible. It sounds like you were able to take something that was a negative situation and you're pushing it into a positive space to help others moving forward. And is that kind of what helped you become a community leader? And would you care to speak about your leadership in the community?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And it really has been the driving force of everything that I've done in every community I've been a part of. It's number one, thinking, where am I going to give back? And so it really developed my love for some of the nonprofits that I serve on. For the last 15 years, I've served on the board of directors of rescue missions, which house the most vulnerable in our societies. They're the safety net dealing with the unhoused, the addicted, the poor, the people who do not have a safety net to house them and get them out of experiencing homelessness. So that do working with other types of nonprofits that deal with at-risk people, whether it's mentoring young students who come from troubled backgrounds, to the gamut of sitting on boards and advising boards that are doing that good work. And it really is how I developed a passion for corporate governance, serving on boards, and really now working in that practice area as well.
Well, and this is a little bit of your work at Mel Trotter Ministries and Goodwill Industries. I mean, would you care to talk about your leadership positions there and the work you do there a little bit?
Sure. And so my work with Goodwill Industries of Greater Grand Rapids, that was about 10 years ago, and it still is left a very, very big imprint on me. It's very impactful work. Goodwill is an international organization that really is about ending employment barriers for the most vulnerable. So probably the most impactful things I would do there were meeting individually with people. Let's say one individual who maybe weeks ago was just previously incarcerated and was seeking job employment for the first time. And I'm sitting down with him and helping him through a mock interview just to give him some life skills that make him successful moving on. That was really impactful. But really the last 12 years, most of my involvement is serving on the board of directors at Mel Trotter Ministries, which has been around 125 years in Grand Rapids, really as this safety net for the community, taking the people who no other organization has a place for them and house them, get them out of homelessness, addiction, poverty, dysfunction. And all of that work, serving multiple roles, including board president, chairing the governance committee, and then just volunteering, having the opportunity to actually go with our team members into the encampments in the city where people are sleeping in tents and have little communities, and trying to show them dignity, that we see them, that they're not just somebody with a cardboard sign. We see them who they are. We're trying to meet their needs and get them off the streets and into a place where they have a safe bed.
Well, it sounds like you've just got this incredible passion for helping people, whether it be people in your community or whether you're helping entrepreneurs through your legal practice. You spoke a little bit. Would you care to dive a little bit deeper about where that passion for helping people and helping entrepreneurs, it sounds like, you're teaching people these business skills. Can you speak a little bit about where that passion for helping entrepreneurs comes from?
Wow. So, I think I'll have to go back and just say that when you've experienced, so the word gratitude comes to mind. And when you come from experience where I experienced, again, my father was a heroin addict, and he died from his drug addiction when I was 20. Alcoholism on one side, drug addiction on the other, poverty. When you experience a great low, and being able to, again, I look at the lives my kids have, the life that they have. It is extremely different from what I grew up with. And I can't help but thank God and be grateful for what I've experienced. And so really, it's an outpouring of thanks to God of what I've been given, the opportunities, knowing where I came from, and wanting to just show that love and appreciation and serve others. When you've been given a lot, much is required of you. That's in the Bible. And I really take that to heart. And so that really drives everything that I do.
And your work with Mel Trotter Ministries, and you've just mentioned, this Bible quote. I mean, does your faith impact what you do in your legal practice at all?
It has to 100%. My faith is my center. We all build our lives and our identity on lots of different things. And when I was at a point going into high school, my faith, my encounter with God is what changed the trajectory of my life from being where I was before and on a new path completely. And so that impacts and is the outflowing of everything I do, up to the core principles of who our firm is. Every business has its own culture, its own values. Our firm has some very fundamental values, including honoring God in everything we do, loving people well, excellence. But it really does flow out from my inner gratitude of everything I've experienced from my Creator.
And I think that's incredible because, I mean, with what you're telling me, it sounds like you could have chosen to take a path of anger, right? You could have chosen to take a path of and made something negative, but you've turned it into something positive. And I mean, would you care to speak a little bit about sort of that process and mind shift of turning negative into something positive?
Wow. Yeah, that's a powerful question because I think all of us are faced with that choice at some point in our life because all of us will face hardships on multiple levels in failures. And we all have the choice of what we're going to do with that. It for me, it has been a journey. It hasn't been perfect. And there's no way that I could have done it without having support from people that I trust. In college, I was lucky to have a mentor who was a professor at the college I was going to, who was a leader in the church I was attending, and his dad was an alcoholic. So I got to have someone like that pour into me. I got to watch somebody who went through the hard things, came out of it, was successful in his business, successful in life, in his family. I got to watch that and say, wow, I can do that. It was instrumental to have people. And quite frankly, there were times throughout that I needed a counselor to help me evaluate and look on those things and not be bitter, to really adjust that. Yeah, we all need help on some level. We do.
Well, and to go off of that, I mean, you've told me a little bit about your story and about, how you were able to create this positive thing from something negative in your own life. Could you tell me a little bit? It sounds like you've seen a lot. It sounds like you've got a ton of stories. Is there one story that you could possibly share of maybe someone that you helped turn a negative into a positive? And can you maybe share a little bit about the transformation that you saw in them as a result of your aid?
There's over time there's been a lot of opportunities to do that, and I think some of those stories are we don't I haven't seen the end of those yet. I'll give you kind of a couple of those, but one is simply I mentioned that I had mentored over the years students in school, and I've had for a course of over 7 years mentoring students who are elementary aged and had backgrounds that I could very well relate to. Every kid during the 7-year period, they were anywhere from the age of first grade up to fifth grade. Same story, no father in the background, unstable housing situation. Some of them, it was food scarcity. There was dysfunction. There was one of them, I was meeting him during the noon hour. And then at the end of the day, I was going to a board meeting at Meltrotter Ministries, and I saw him and his family there. They may have had some place to stay the night before, but tonight they were situationally homeless. And so they were staying at the shelter. But being able to take a kid in that situation and speak value to them day in and day out, that there was an adult who told him, you're worth spending time with. You have what it takes. Those stories are not yet finished. So those were very instrumental. The other ones, I've also spent time giving back with younger professionals. So early on in their profession, early 20s, who are just entering the workforce. And there's a couple that over the last 10 years particularly, been able to just meet with and watch as they navigate starting out with a career, then getting married, then having a child, then going through these next phases. So I can't say with those situations that there's been a remarkable, I can see a black and white, I was dead, now I'm alive type of transition. But being able to walk with somebody over a extended period of time and watch them grow and know the role that you've played in that, that's invaluable. And we really would need more of that. We just need more people willing to invest in a younger generation and walk alongside with them over the long haul.
And what do you think are some of the barriers, that might be keeping the older generation from reaching out to the younger generation and helping them in the way that you are?
Wow. There's, I think there's a lot of them. I think one of them comes to mind is we all think that we have time. We
Right.
think, oh, I can always do that tomorrow or later. And when really tomorrow isn't promised to any of us. I mean, I see it in the same context of our firm's estate planning process. Why is it so many people haven't put together a will or a trust? Well, because we don't think we're going to die. We just don't. It's on the back burner. And so time, I can do that tomorrow, or somebody else is going to do that. Or maybe it's a self-reflection. I mean, what do I have to offer somebody else? When in reality, anybody who has walked there, been there, has value to impart to a younger generation. They just do. And so it's that. And then the other one is, well, nobody's asked me. Well, we need people to be proactive. We need people not to have to be invited into something. We need people who are going to lead in that way, to seek it out, because there's so much need.
Right. Now, I'm gonna preface this question by saying this is a bit of a loaded question. Okay. But because you're doing estate planning in your legal profession, and you're doing this sort of community outreach with the younger generation, is there sort of a unifying message that you find yourself a lesson that you're trying to impart to both sides of it? Or, I mean, is there a commonality between what you're trying to teach the younger generation and the older generation, or is it separate? Like I said, loaded question.
For all of them, I think what we're trying to do is focus them on the things that they are not often thinking about. We're trying to focus them on the things that matter. So it's, I love reading, and I'm one of those people that recycles through the stuff that they read over and over again as well. And then I'll add new books in, but I go back to it. And some of the things I go back to are the Stephen Covey principles and 7 Habits of Effective People, because they're enduring truths. That's what they go. And one of those 7 habits are begin with the end in mind. How do you know how you're supposed to live if you don't know where you're going? We need to identify that bigger picture. We need to step back and think about the important things that aren't urgent, that aren't taking up our minds. Think about what's important, walk ourselves back, and how do we live today to affect that purpose in our lives?
I mean, that's a great piece of advice. You can't tell a story if you don't know the ending, right? I mean, that's just an absolutely great piece of advice. And I guess a question I have is, old or young, what does it look like if people need your help and need the help of your firm or need the help of these community programs? What does it look like if they don't seek out that help, if they just keep on going the way that they've been going?
Yeah. And that's the interesting thing about our profession, the legal industry. We see worst case scenarios all the time. We see what happens in that instance. And usually, so in the context, I'll just say, we could use any of those areas, but estate planning in particular, what happens when, for instance, the young man, I'll say young, he was 49 and had young teenage children. He died of COVID unexpectedly. He wasn't expecting to die early. And when he did die, he had some of his estate plan together, but not others. It was a mess. And so
Wow.
when his kids are grieving, what does it look like then to also have to go through the pieces of trying to put this puzzle back in place so that the kids are protected? So those type of instances, and then obviously, if in the context of businesses, nobody ever thinks they're going to get sued, and that's the case. But inevitably, if you're in business any long period of time, it's going to happen in some respect. And so, well, what happens if you aren't proactive? You don't have your protections in place. It's going to be a lot harder when you're giving that mess to an attorney and say, please fix this problem. And we see that on a regular basis.
Now, this, you 49 years young, and you said earlier in the show that you're 43. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
So I want to talk about what happened prior to 40, though, when you were named 40 under 40 in Grand Rapids. Can you talk a little bit about that?
All I can say about that is it was completely unexpected. I certainly did not see it coming. It was, it was one of those that, as I talked with the other contemporaries who also won that award, I think a lot of companies will have their marketing department go and pitch their 40 under 40 crowds for these nominations. I did no such thing. We're a boutique firm. I don't have a marketing department. And so it came as a surprise to me. I said, who, me? So all that to say, it was a huge flattery, and I would assume it was some of the people who I serve, whether it's Mel Trotter or otherwise, and just being kind by nominating me up for the things they were thankful for.
That's kind of I guess something I'm interested in as well is you're talking about Mel Trotter and you're talking about goodwill, and one of the things that I'm interested in is because you do hold these kind of two hats, right? You're a legal and boardroom advisor, and you're a part of this firm, but you're doing all of this community outreach work as well. Do you find that those two roles, I mean, are there commonalities or there similarities between the two roles? Like, what are the commonalities there, and what are the major differences?
Yeah, that's also a very interesting question. So it's first off, I guess I've probably, my conviction over the years has been trying to live a life of integrity. And what I mean by integrity, you can define a lot of different ways, but just simply meaning I'm the same person in every context. And so it doesn't matter how you find me. I'm not living duplicitly. I'm not living in silos. And so in that context, I think there's crossover in every way. Whatever hat I'm wearing, I am who I am. And but certainly the skills are crossing over, because what I do in my professional life is I solve problems. We solve problems, and that certainly comes into the context of board service. If I'm serving in these organizations, it's very complementary when I'm helping craft policy that I think furthers a mission of an organization. So I think the complexities where it can get complex, if we're wearing different hats, and how do I put it this way? As a business lawyer, where I get my client, we are completely relational. We don't do marketing, traditional marketing. Where I end up getting clients from are the people who know, like, and trust me, and also are decision makers who have a need in their business. And so usually what that means is it's in the context of people who work closely to me. So it's in the nonprofit section. So in my board service, I could be also asked to do legal services for any one of those, or a number of those. That to me can get complex, because I want to always be clear. I'm not doing my service for my own selfish ambition. That's not on my radar. But it is interesting how when you lead with being others minded and doing what's right, that attracts people to want to work with you. And so that's the tension I feel sometimes.
Yeah. Well, Jeshua, this has been an absolutely fantastic discussion. And if anybody listening right now could use the services of David Wierenga and Lauka, or could use the services of any of the community programs that you are a part of, how do people find you?
The best place to find me is LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I'll connect right away. Otherwise, you can email me. It's my first name, Jeshua at dwlawpc.com.
Jeshua, thank you so much. Thank you for coming on the show. This has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much.
Really enjoyed it. Thanks, Adrian.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been Partnerships for Profit, presented by Leduc Entertainment. Thanks again, Jeshua.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Partnerships for Profit. We hope you've gained valuable insights on how to form profitable partnerships and take your business to the next level. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Got a partnership story to share or someone you'd like to see featured on the show? Reach out to us. Until next time, keep building those partnerships for profit.